Beloved friends, have you ever had your faith in God shaken? Was there a time you prayed for something or for someone in a desperate situation and nothing positive happened? Or was there a time you wished that God should just come down and manifest His glory, but He would not do it? You are not alone. The readings of the 27th Sunday in Ordinary Time is about faith on a crossroad. In the first reading, Prophet Habakkuk questions the ways of God. How long would God allow injustice and violence to keep happening? And despite prayer and sacrifices, He does nothing about it. Does God really care? Does He answer the prayers of His people? The context of this experience is that God's people are in trouble. They have been unfaithful, and another nation is making war against them. Consequently, there is violence, ruin, misery, and destruction. It seems to be overwhelming to the prophet because his prayers are not heard. Thus, he cries out in pain, questioning why he should witness to all this. I remember when my dad was critically sick between 2008 and 2009. We took him to several hospitals and doctors. I prayed for him, I fasted, and asked several of my friends to assist me in prayer for him. My entire family prayed fervently, hoping that God would spare him for us. But he died at the age of 62. We were devastated. And I'm sure you too can name the times when you prayed for something, waited for healing, hoped for justice, but nothing came forth as you expected. Prophet Habakkuk, in his lamentation, represents all of us when everything seems to be going wrong, when it seems that God is far from our very real, unjust, and troubled world. Surprisingly, God was not displeased with Habakkuk because of his feeling. Instead, he revealed his plans to him in a reassuring tone. God said, "Be patient with me. I have a plan. Write this vision down on tablets for all time and wait for it, and you will see justice will surely come and will not be late, even if it seems delayed." Really? You know that waiting for God is a difficult experience. In the biblical history, the Israelites, the kings, the prophets failed so many times in the face of patient waiting. The human tendency in waiting and in his restlessness is often to move away from an inactive God in human affairs and learn to function without him. In fact, in 1882, Friedrich Nietzsche, a German philosopher, announced the death of God. Nietzsche's attempt was to expose the momentous cultural shift where humanity moved away from God and the traditional European morality because God, faith, religion, and morality were obsolete. Thus, the world needed a new era of human self-sufficiency. Of course, the feeling of God's absence during difficult times can create the temptation to abandon Him. But God's presence or active supremacy does not depend on feelings. In the gospel reading from Luke's Gospel, chapter 17, Jesus uses the image of the mustard seed to describe the kind of faith that does not depend on feelings. He says, "If you had faith the size of a mustard seed, you could say to this mulberry tree, 'Be uprooted and cast into the sea,' and it will obey you." You know, humanly speaking, if faith can move things literally as expressed in the gospel, many of us will be wonder workers. But because things will definitely happen whenever we make any command. But faith does not always function that way. The faith that Jesus Christ is talking about is not a mere belief that there is a God. Rather, Jesus means a kind of loyalty, trust, and steadfastness that translates into love and confidence in the eternal power of God. Faithfulness is more than the measure of religious practices that we perform or doing things right. Instead, it's about the nature, meaning, and depth of a person's belief and practice, focusing on doing the right thing and the transformation of one's being. The mustard seed's ability to grow into a large plant illustrates that faith, which when planted and nurtured in God, grows and becomes powerful. Thus, the emphasis is not on the size of the faith itself, but the power of God in whom the faith is placed. Notice that the mustard seed's growth is gradual, symbolizing that God's work in the world and in us often requires patience and perseverance to manifest its great potential. In the second reading, taken from St. Paul's second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, Paul encourages Timothy to rekindle the gift of faith that was given to him at his election. Remember, Paul is writing from prison. He himself has gone through trials, waiting, and perseverance. His appeal to Timothy is that when we cry out in frustration, faith doesn't necessarily take away the trial. Rather, it strengthens us and reactivates in us the gift of God's consciousness that we already possess. My dear friends, these words addressed to Timothy are meant to encourage and challenge us when we face difficult situations. First, it means you are not alone in your struggles. The prophets and saints felt the same way at times. While it is easy to isolate yourself in your pains and misery, which apparently nobody in the world can understand, God's presence does not diminish. When grief, betrayal, injustice, and all the evil in the world close in with you and make you feel isolated and forgotten, remember, you are not alone in your feelings and questions, and neither does God abiding, encompassing presence change. My dear friends, faithfulness in this situation hangs on the assurance that your life is tied to the lives of all the believers in ways that you cannot understand. And God is seeking you out with his plans. In the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, faith is described as the assurance of things hoped for and the realization of the things we do not see at the present time, but which is revealed through time and season. My friends, if I can assure you of one thing, it would be the promise that because of God's great love, you are not consumed. His compassions never fail us. They are new every morning, for great is his faithfulness. What I ask of you today is faith, and because of your faith, you will live. May God bless you.